we're out here doing a little bit of scouting. What we're mostly doing is just trying to pull cell cameras. And throughout this video, you'll hear me kind of talking about, why certain cameras are in different spots, or what the objective is of that camera, or, what kind of led me to get into that area. One thing that I want to make real clear right off the bat is I'm not making this video to teach anybody. This is just kind of a fun video of me going out scouting, and this is the story behind each one of the cameras and stuff like that. There are better people to learn from, like Dan Infalt's videos and stuff like that. I come across videos of young guys like me, or old guys, depending on how young you are looking at me, but they'll start trying to teach, like they know enough to actually teach. That is not what I'm doing. That's like when somebody's singing a song on the radio, and you're like, hey, who plays that song? They say, oh, Luke Bryan plays that song. She said, you should let him play it. Stop singing. That's kind of the same type of deal here. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. But, yeah, so that's what we're up to. Right, Rex? Huh? You good boy? He's squirrel hunting. He never stops squirrel hunting. So anyhow, I hope you enjoy the video, or whatever. Something to fall asleep to, if nothing else. All right, so I'm out here in central Wisconsin right now. It is February 22nd. This is actually the first time we've been out postseason scouting, which is later than normal. But with all the snow that we've been getting, it just kind of seemed pointless. So today we're having a trail cam day where I'm going to be pulling all my trail cams that I have up in this part of the state, and trying to do a little bit of scouting, a little bit of shed hunting, but the main objective is to just get all the cameras pulled. So I'm standing here, and this is a camera that I got one of my target bucks on, and I'll show you where we're at here. If you look right through there, that's the road. So what I've been trying to do with more cameras, I do have some deep ones, but I've been trying to put more cameras in road crossing locations so they're easier to collect at the end of the season. So this camera we got, right up there, and give you a little side profile. One thing that I do differently with my cameras that I haven't really heard anybody else talk about is I hang them with wire, fencing wire, or concrete form wire. So that way they're a lot harder to pick out of the tree when you don't have that strap. And also, if you hang them with like paracord or something like that, the squirrels can chew on it, where they're not going to chew through wire. So I'm going to pull this camera and we'll get this one back to the truck. I got one more in this area. We'll go pull that and hit the next wood lot. All right, so here we are. We just got to the second camera to pull here. This is the road right here. See what really helps make that camera blend into that tree. I just take black paint with a paintbrush, and I just kind of scrape it all over the camera. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. But you can see, just hung up with some wire. All right, so here we're at camera 3, and the reason that I put this one here, and again, we're pretty close to a road. I'm within 100 yards of the road right now, and I was scouting this area out because the year previously, so not last year but the year before, I was walking through kind of near here gun hunting and found a lot of tracks, a lot of buck sign, and I figured that they might be bedding over here in this kind of overlooked area. So when I scouted it, I didn't really find a whole lot for buck sign, but there's a kind of a low buck density in this area, so not having sign in a spot doesn't necessarily mean there's not a big buck there, because all of the biggest bucks that I found around here, with the exception of one, was in areas that actually had low sign. So, but while I was scouting this out, I could see that there was a doe that was living in here. There was kind of beds. This was taller grass in the spring, and there were beds kind of all along the side of this ridge. So I set this camera up here thinking that doe would be hanging out in this area, and she did. She stayed in this area all season long, and she had a fawn in here, and I expected a buck to come visit her during the rut, since I wasn't seeing any bucks in here during the regular part of the year. So come rut, really no buck. I got a couple of pictures of like little forkhorns and stuff, like nothing big, and there are big ones nearby. So I found that really surprising. But so this one is a cell camera. So what we're on up here is kind of the top of a ridge where it opens up a little bit. All surrounding this is all pretty thick cover, good bedding cover, and it's near the road. And it's adjacent to a parking lot where nobody, I don't think I got a picture of a person on this camera. Maybe I did get a picture of one person on this camera, but other than that, like all year, nothing. So I'm not more than I don't know, 100, 150 yards from where I just pulled that camera, and I just came across this rub. And it's a pretty decent rub. It's the center of the rub is at about the top of my thigh, like, you know, where my pocket starts. Not quite waist height, but pretty decent rub. But I'm not really too sure what to think of it. So you got a house that's right across the road right here. We're like 50 yards from the road right now. And this is all thick, you know, so it could be used as bedding. But like I said, I had that camera in there, and if there was a buck bedding in here on any type of regular basis, I really think that he would have made it past where that camera was. It's kind of a natural funnel to end up there, the way the land moves you around here. So I'm not really too sure what to think about this, if this is just kind of a random rut rub or something like that, or if I really need to investigate this piece a little bit more. I don't know. Like I said, last year there wasn't near as much buck sign in here as I thought there should have been, but there was a lot of deer sign. But I'm talking about a half a mile away from where we're actually at right now, but it all ties into the same piece. I don't know. I really don't want to waste too much time here. I got a lot more cameras to get yet today. Come on, Rex, let's go. All right, so me and Rex are just walking down this main trail here, and we kicked 3 deer. It could have been 4, but at least 3 deer came off this bedding point, ran across into these oaks over here. So I'm just gonna cut over here and kind of look at their beds and see what they were doing. See, you can. There's its ass over there. That's where it had its front legs tucked underneath of it. I can see, looks like there's another bed over there. So I'm gonna walk over there and check that out. So I'm already learning something right now, because by the time I saw them deer running, they were closer to the point, and they're actually further back from the point than what I thought they were. So it's kind of, you know, maybe it's because it's winter and there's not as much foliage and stuff out. But here's the next bed. Yeah, look at how well you can see the hoof, the dew claw, the back knee right there. Pretty cool. I'm not seeing, there should be at least one or two more. It's got to be towards the trail. Because honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that if they were laying this far off the trail, that they would have even gotten up. So I'm thinking the other beds have got to be closer to the trail. So I probably got one or two up and moved these ones with them. I'm kind of in a crunch for time. Before I got a lot of cameras to get before it gets dark, and I'm not going to make it. Okay, here's another bed. No, actually, it's not a bed. Yeah, it is a bed. For a second, I thought it was just a spot where a deer had dug up to feed, but that looks like a bed for sure. Huh. All right, well, we got a boogie. Get back to our mission here. We can do more scouting later in the year. All right, so we just got to camera number 4. Now what this is I found a natural scrape here a couple years ago, and I put a cell camera on it, and it was getting used year round. So I've maintained a cell camera on it for the last 2 years, and in fact, the original branch that the scrape was under, they got busted off here. So I had folded down and wired it up so it stayed alive, this branch here, to try to keep the scrape going. And they did keep working it this year, but it wasn't as good as last year. Now I don't know if that's because of hunting pressure from me hunting it a couple of times, or if it's just, you know, just the pattern's changing. However, I've been walking through this woods here, and it's been pretty desolate up until this area. We got a bunch of trails coming through here, all tying together and going back here into some private. So I'm probably going to keep running the camera on this. I'm going to pull the camera just and go through it, make sure everything's working, because it quit working pretty early this year. So yeah, get this thing pulled and we'll get to the next couple. Well, the deer are moving. Got fresh tracks right inside of my tracks from when I was walking in. What do you want, you little monster? All right, so we're just heading back to pull camera number 5, and it's a non-cell camera, pretty close to the road. And there's a mess of deer trails coming back out of there, so they're a little bit not quite coming from the camera, but hopefully this one's got some pretty good intel on it. Well, unfortunately, there's not near the action going on over here as there was just 60 yards that way. So that's a little unfortunate, but there's a lot going on over there. I'm gonna have to scout that a little bit, shed hunting, and see what's all back over there. It's kind of a no man's land. I haven't really done a whole lot in that little area, so anyhow, get this one pulled and get on to the next one. All right, so we're going back to pull number 6 right now. And that camera I talked about in one of my videos a couple weeks ago, where I had got some pictures of some decent bucks on camera, and then I went in there and hunted it later that afternoon and got or middle of the day I should say, and got a picture of a pretty decent buck. And about 25 minutes later, I was actually in, we're getting real close, one of these trees right here. And while I was sitting there, I was looking that way, so I had my stand was facing this way. And I was turned around looking that way, it was pouring rain. And out of here, he came walking straight to the base of my tree. And I seen him when he was about right there, out of the corner of my eye. But I really couldn't move, you know. And then he got right to the base of my tree. And at that point, I could have shot him, but I didn't have any camera gear up because it was pouring rain. And he was a pretty decent deer, but he wasn't big enough to shoot without filming, put it that way. If I could have filmed him, I would have shot him, but I wouldn't have shot him without being able to film him, if that makes any sense to you. So yeah, this is just an overlooked bedding area that's kind of close to the road. And it's kind of funny because all year long, I did not get any pictures of bucks in here. I had the same family group of does on a very regular basis, and it wasn't until rut and all of a sudden this spot got hot. So the bucks are not living here, but now I know that this is a rut spot that I need to hunt. You know, I'll have to look at the date on that. I can't remember if it was October or if it was November, but what tree was it? All right, so I was one tree off. I was looking at that one. It's actually this tree here. That's the one that I was in, and I was right up there. And that deer, so I was leaning against it looking that way. And that deer came right down this trail here. Got to here. And that's the point at which I could have shot him, and I just didn't. And then he took off down this way through that brush. So they're not the easiest to make out, but you can tell that this is a bed right here that's been covered with snow. That looks like that could be one. This is one. So we're right in between that camera and where I was sitting. And now that I've seen this, I'm kind of thinking that I set up a little bit too close. There's another bed. Here's the first one right here. Obvious. Obviously, if you don't know that, then it looks like there's another one right there, maybe. I think that's where this doe just lives in here, because I get pictures of her so regularly. It was daily, basically. Here's 2 more beds. So now this is all doe bedding, everything that we're seeing. And I will admit that this part of the state has really kicked my ass as far as finding the fine buck bedding. This central Wisconsin, it's just everything is just kind of stirred up, you know. It's like a camouflage pattern of different kinds of woods and lowland, and it's everything is different, but everything's the same, if you know what I mean. It's just kind of all swirled together like a tie-dye shirt. So it's what makes this little thicket, ooh, is that a bird? I think it was a bird flying through the brush there. You know, what makes this thicket better than the next thicket? You know, for a buck at least, you know? So I've really had a hard time figuring out where bucks are actually living. Where is this camera? It should be. Where's the ditch? I'm standing in the ditch. Uh-oh, the she's going. Oh, no, it's really, really hard to pick out on that dark tree. So yeah, and what that camera is watching is this ditch line right here. And I was getting, the does were traveling through this ditch right off of this bedding point. I guess you call it a point. It's like a thicket point. It's not actually an elevation point. Actually, it is a slight elevation point. It is higher than all this dogwood over here. And then you got more grass and dogwood over here. So I guess it's only like a half a foot, but I guess it is an elevation point, bedding point. And when I was getting pictures of the bucks cruising, they were always coming through like this. And me and Cody were out here scouting this piece in the season last year, and we found a really well used scrape in an area right next to the trail. And we found a few rubs, nothing like giant, but we did find a couple decent ones, and the decent stuff was closer to the road. So one thing that I'm starting to pick up on in this part of the area, and I wish I would have filmed it on the last camera that we just pulled, not the last camera, the camera before that we had just pulled. There was a high spot near that camera, about 75 yards from that camera, where I know the does like to lay up on that hill. And when we got up there, there was a bunch of beds up on that hill. And what I noticed was there was an old historical mature buck rub that's always been there, and I don't think it got hit this previous year, but this year it got hit again. So the last rub that I said I didn't really know if it was a rut rub or what it was, that was right outside of a bedding area. So I think what that is a mature buck marking doe bedding areas. I don't know that for sure, but that's kind of the theory that I'm working on right now. So like I said, this part of the state, it kicks my ass. I've been getting lucky sometimes and finding big deer, but I don't have, like, I couldn't tell you how to do it. Like, all I can do is like kind of walk into an area and I can see this kind of feels right. I'm not really too sure why, but this area feels different than the rest of the areas, even though they're all kind of the same. And then I hunt it, and then sometimes I get lucky and I see a decent buck out here. But like I can't describe it yet. I'm still really trying to figure out how it works here. Like, this is so much more difficult for me than hill country or for marsh or swamp, cattails. You know, that stuff is so easy because marshes are definitely the easiest, and then hill country the next easiest, and then this area is just killing me. You know, I'd even say big woods is easier than this, because with big woods you can just kind of go off terrain features in the big woods and creeks and stuff like that. But this is just like, it's all the same. Anyhow, let's pull this camera and get on to the next one. What do you got there, Rex? Huh? What do you got? That's been cut. Somebody shooting little fawns? Huh? Somebody been shooting little fawns? Deer about the same size as you. So what this one is here is it's in between two parking lots near the road, and I thought this camera would do better than it did. This one is a cell camera, and I really didn't get a whole lot. I got a couple of okay bucks off of it, but nothing with any consistency. Always mark your cameras on Onyx. So one thing I always do is I always drop a pin where the camera is, and I take a picture of that of that camera in the tree and save it to that Onyx point. So that way when I'm back in that area, and if that camera did get stolen, I'm not like just doing circles forever trying to figure out where I put it. You know, you can kind of match up the branches in the picture and be like, oh, okay, it was in that tree right there and now it's gone. But I'm sure this one is here. We just gotta find it. So right now we are in what used to be one of my favorite woodlots to hunt. 3 years ago, was it 3 or 4 now? I discovered a giant buck living in this piece on accident. I was out here turkey hunting and I came across this rub line that was just a giant mature rub line. And I had not deer hunted in this area ever before. I always kind of considered this part of the state to be a pretty small buck, you know, brush buck part of the state. So I just kind of always ignored it. But while I was out here turkey hunting, ooh, I almost just busted my ass. I'm walking down this. This isn't a trail. This is a ditch that's full of water. So I could break through at any moment. But so I was like, oh, what the hell? I'm gonna come back here and set some trail cameras up, kind of in the areas of those rub lines, and you know, just let them soak for a year. So I hunted all season in other parts of the state and stuff, and I come back and pull that camera. There was like 1 or 2 weeks left in the season. And I was driving through the area. I was like, oh, I'll just go pull that camera. It ain't too far off. It ain't too deep. So I pulled that camera and I got this fucking giant. I don't name deer, but in general. But this deer ended up getting named the Tinderbuck for a story that I will tell you about in a future video. I'm not going to ruin it on this one. But had a little bit of history with that deer. Still don't know for 100% what happened to him. Supposedly, the last story that I heard was that he got poached out of the private by a trespasser that butted up to this. Ooh, I can hear the ice getting hollow. Got shot during gun season by a trespasser. But I had pictures of him after that, after when the guy claims that this had happened. So either way, I don't think that deer's alive. It's been a few years and he hasn't resurfaced, and people would be talking about him if he was. So anyhow, yep. So what ruined this piece of property is I hunted this place 3 years now, 3 full seasons. So it would have been 4 years ago that the Tinderbuck was discovered, that I discovered him for myself. So the first year hunting out here was pretty sweet. There was not much pressure out here. And then the next year, the pressure got pretty heavy once the rut kicked in. And then this year, the pressure was heavy all year long. And I've ran cameras in here last year and this year, and the buck size that you're getting in here just keeps going smaller and smaller. I got a picture of one buck that was even close to a shooter in here, where in previous years I was getting half a dozen shooters in here. So I don't know about half a dozen, that might be stretching it, but like 4. Closer to a half a dozen than 0. Right? No? Uh-oh. The door's open. That's not good. Well, it squirrel or something must have opened it up, or it must have just popped on its own from expansion and contraction or whatever. So one thing that I've noticed about this particular woodlot and other ones that I've hunted in this part of the state that are similar is where where all the best cover is. You know, you'd expect to see the best sign, but man, what I run into is out in the middle of all this, there'll be scrapes and rubs everywhere. And then you get back into the real good stuff where they're actually bedding and stuff like that, and there's like no sign. You know, almost never find rubs next to beds. It's never really made sense to me. I mean, obviously it's hunting at night. I'm not stupid, I get that. But why aren't they doing it in their bedding areas? No, here, we're walking. I think that's a rub on this tree right here. You know, so this one was rubbed last year and this year by probably two different bucks. You know, you see this is a rub right here, and then this is a rub right here. You know, it's never really made sense to me why they're, I mean, I guess you could kind of compare this to like a field edge. You know, maybe there's food in here, don't get me wrong. But there's also areas not far from here that are loaded with acorns. And in those areas, they don't get really rubbed up or make a lot of scrapes in them. You'll find them there now and then, but it's like these areas get pounded with sign, and I've never quite figured that out. Oh, there's a lot of pieces. I got like a puzzle all spread out on a table, and I got like maybe less than a quarter of it put together. Yeah, here's another one. You know, that's a young buck rub. Here's another rub, and this one's a little bit better too. This one, it got ticked up a little bit this year, but this is, I don't think that's from this year. I think that's last year. But right there, you know, right there, that's new. That's new. I don't know. You tell me. You tell me why they're not laying down sign in the areas where they're bedding, and why they're laying. Although I'm not gonna lie, I see a decent amount of deer in these open areas, just walking into stands in the sometimes middle of the day. So I don't know. Maybe they're actually bedding in some of this stuff more than you realize, or the edges of it. But I mean, we're pretty much in the middle of it right now. All right, so we're heading back to pull our last public land camera in central Wisconsin. This is number 9 of the day. In fact, we may even have a little bit of time. We could run over to Kenny's and pull the last 2, and then I could have all central Wisconsin cameras in, leaving only a couple more out, like 3 or 4 cameras out still. So here we are. Boom. This camera is right on a old trail, like an old logging trail at one time that's kind of overgrown, that had a decent amount of deer sign. In fact, there were some beds and stuff right on this point, but there's a parking lot right across the road. And I was like, there's no way that this is gonna pan out. But I was like, I'll put the camera up just to see. And I got pictures of deer on it up until about I don't know, maybe a month or so into the season, there were guys on this camera almost daily. And it really surprised me that I don't have a single picture of a guy looking up at the camera. They're all just walking like this right to the truck. But, yep. All right. Well, we got 2 more to pull yet, I think. I think we can pull this off. This is what a private land camera looks like. Scrape. Camera. Ground height with a strap. Easy to see, easy to steal. Private land, shouldn't have to worry about it. A lot less sticking around than the public land ones, I'll tell you that. Alright, camera number 11 of the day. Private land camera. Scrape. I think that's his nephew's ladder stand there. I'm not sure. I don't hunt Kenny's property, but there's a lot of public near it. So I run 2 cameras on it. I got 1 more camera back home that if it's not stolen, when I go pull that one, I'm gonna put that out here too. These the Tacticam cell cameras, I'm not a big fan of them for public land. They're big and easy to see, and they take more batteries. And from my experience, the battery life in the Tacticams is less than the Muddies. So you're forcing more batteries into them things, and they're expensive if you're running lithiums. So yeah, I'm just gonna I've got 1 more maybe Tacticam back home. I'm gonna donate that to Kenny, and that way I can kind of see what's going on Kenny's, so I know what to expect on the public near it, and then I'm able to help Kenny keep a little bit better inventory on what he's got going on. This year was bad. Nothing big, you know. The year before there was a big one on it. It came through a couple of times during the season. Was hanging out late season, but this year there wasn't a single buck that I would say big on Kenny's all year long. So anyhow, get this camera pulled, and this is the last one of the day. Pretty sweet. Oh no. Woodpecker or something. It's not like a 22 hole or nothing, because you can see it's not broken inside of there. Shit. Well, whatever. So I'm going to give you a little tip that at least I think is important, and that is, if you run cameras, do it for fun, just because you want to see what's out there. Don't be hunting from your cameras. You're just going to be so more discouraged if you're checking your cameras all the time and you're not getting any pictures of big bucks, and you're like, God, there's nothing here. Why would I even hunt this? Just put the cameras out, put them in new areas and stuff like that, and you know, do it with excitement. Like, I can't wait to see what kind of bucks I get in this area. Maybe they're big, maybe they're small. Okay, I'll learn that part of the woods a little bit better. Nothing big's hanging out there. Next year I'm going to try a different area or something like that. I feel like, you know, some years I don't run cameras at all. I got a boatload of them. I got a bunch of cheap ones I like to put out on public when I have time. And I enjoy finding big bucks. Like, oh wow, you know, I found, I don't know, well over a half a dozen really big bucks in areas where I did not think that they were big bucks by running cameras. I've also found a couple of big bucks with my eyes from hunting in areas where I didn't think they were big bucks. But just, you know, you got to have fun with them. Use them as an exciting tool, not live or die. If I don't have a picture of a big buck, there's not a big buck there, because that's not necessarily the case. So, and some of the years that I've killed in multiple states, were on years that I didn't run any cameras and I was only hunting off a sign. And I've had years where I've been running a whole bunch of cameras, got all kinds of intel, and didn't even kill a deer anywhere. So just something to think about that way. Now, personally, if let's just say that I had 500 acres in a really nice area, I don't think I'd even want to run cameras, just because, you know, as long as there's not like a trespasser issue, it's kind of fun and exciting to know, hey, I got this prime land. There's big deer on it. I'm just going to kind of go out and see what I see. But on the public, when you're hunting heavily pressured public, you got to spread out. And I'm not saying you can't kill a deer without trail cameras. I think you probably kill more deer without them, to be honest. But it's not the same thing. You know, you can't compare the two. You can't go out and unpressured and expect to, you know, just see what you see versus public, where you want to kill a big one on public, you got to kind of know that there is a big one on public in order to do it, whether that be by sign and scouting or by trail cameras or all, you know, all of them. But just the way that I look at cameras, like I don't live or die by them. I just do it for fun to see what's there. So anyhow, that was the last camera, so I'm heading home. I'm gonna do some scouting more locally tomorrow. I'm a little out of breath. I'm out of shape. So all right, maybe I'll make a video about tomorrow. We'll see, but see you guys. That's how you know there ain't no private land in this area. I'm going to turn around and drive past the last field, which had equal amount, if not more, deer in it. And they were running a backhoe in the same field, and the deer were just out there eating. So anyhow, you'll see that in a second.